area.
Feltre is a small town 45 minutes north of Bassano. The mountain here is called Monte Avena, a huge top plateau where the takeoffs are located. According to the local paragliding club, the Para and Delta Club Feltre, hang gliding was practiced at Monte Avena since the mid of the 70s. A couple of years later, in the late 80s, paragliding took over.
I think Feltre can be really a good alternative to Bassano if the conditions are okay and maybe if Bassano is too crowded.
Getting up the mountain takes about 30 minutes by car. Depending on the season, the last 2 kilometers of the road might be closed as it is in a quite bad condition. Taxi can be organized up the mountain from the Feltre clubhouse. But now let's get to the takeoffs. The first option is a skiing slope facing to the northeast. This is not an official launch site and caution has to be taken because there are some light poles in the middle of the slope. If the wind allows, it is better to move on for a couple of meters to the official east takeoff. Actually, this takeoff is also a skiing slope, but the terrain is only sloping slightly down. It is quite easy to handle. The only thing to watch is the trees to the left and to the right. At the time of visit, I was happy to find a local paragliding school launching here. I didn't even bring my gear with me because the day was considered not flyable due to strong east winds. The altitude of this takeoff is about 1,380 meters. The height difference from the takeoff to the landing is approximately 1,100 meters. 3.5 kilometers to the east, we find the main landing at the clubhouse in Boscherai. This is the clubhouse of the Para and Delta Club of Feltre. Right next to it, this huge windsock at the landing place, from where the takeoffs on Monte Avena are visible. From here it is easiest to find other pilots to get up the mountain. There are about 60 parking spaces and camping in a nearby parking lot should not be a problem. The landing site is a huge meadow of about 200 meters to 100 meters in size. There are some electric lines around, but they are quite far away. Nearby the landing there are only 2 obstacles, the clubhouse to the north and a sharp sloping embankment to the east, so don't overshoot the landing place. Now let's get back up the mountain to the south takeoff. So this is now the official takeoff of Monte Avena. To be more precise, this is the takeoff which is used most of the time. According to the local paragliding club, there is a huge parking lot with spaces for over 40 cars. That is an indicator that it can be very crowded if the conditions are good in summer. Sometimes there are also competition and races where this takeoff is used as a starting point. The takeoff is quite flat at the top and then slowly starting to slope down, so it's a perfect place also for the beginners. It is a huge area of about 12,000 square meters and it is also suitable for top landing. According to the local club, turbulences are very unlikely, but if the wind is from the east or from the west, the takeoff is only for experienced pilots, and if the wind is from the north, the takeoff is forbidden. I would really like to start at this place
if I was able to, but in these weather conditions obviously it is not possible.
On the way from the east to the south takeoff, there is a board with current information. The local club is asking visiting pilots to get the news from here, and there is also a map of the whole paragliding area. Now let's move on to the third official takeoff, the west takeoff.
This is the Monte Avena west takeoff.
Even if it's called west takeoff, in reality the takeoff is facing south-southwest. The altitude is almost the same as the south takeoff, and it's also very flat at the top.
And then here in the front, at the edge, it gets very steep immediately. So I think the challenge here is you just have to be sure that the glider is properly above you, and then I think this takeoff should be no problem. But if you're not sure about this, there's not a lot of chances to stop the takeoff run.
But these soft bushes prevent the worst from happening. Same as the south takeoff, the area of the west takeoff is huge, and it is facing directly to the landing of Arten. This landing is located at the road to Bassano, a couple of kilometers west to Feltre. It's a pretty long northwest to southeast strip of about 200 to 30 meters. There are no dangers in the immediate vicinity, but as it is located in an industrial zone, there are smaller buildings around it. The wind is normally from the east and can get very strong in the afternoon. Back up the mountain we find two more takeoff options, even though they are not official. The first one is a steep slope to the southwest. I don't think it's necessary to consider it, as the south takeoff is much better than this place. The second is a west-northwest facing terrain, which is not very steep, so that a proper wind from the front is required to launch. As I already mentioned, it's not an official takeoff, and the local club is asking visiting pilots to be sensitive with the environment. Here I'm on the road between Arten and Feltre, on the way to the final destination of today's video, the landing in Tabia. The pole of the windsock of this huge meadow is broken down. As this landing is not mentioned on the website of the local club, but only on the information board, I think it's not used very often anymore. Nevertheless, this landing is facing from east to west. The size is about 150 to 100 meters, and there are no obstacles except of the trees bordering the road. I think it can be used if the pilot is not able to reach the main landing in Boscherai anymore. Let us summarize the area. Up on Monte Avena, takeoffs to each direction. The landing in Arten, the landing in Tabia, and the landing in Boscherai. The appeal of this paragliding area to me is its proximity to the mountains and its top landing options on Monte Avena. I hope you have enjoyed the video.